DEF CON was from one of our good friends, Zach Fassel from Chicago. And he talked a lot about log management, and it was one of the few Blue Team talks that I saw, but it was really, really well done, talking about some new stuff. But Joel's talk is going to be better. And why? Because you can hear it today, and Joel's generally going to be better. So let's give it up for Joel, who's going to talk to us about open source log management tonight.
Hi, how y'all doing? Now the goal of this presentation is I wanted to go over, I ate the mic, they say. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is log management. And I wanted to go over the steps you want to do to plan out log management, and then we'll go over some of the open source technologies out there that you can potentially look at. So, my name's Joel Kershner, a little bit of everything geek. I participate in SecKC, Kansas City's hackerspace, along with SecKC. So, why do we want to manage logs? I mean, obviously, security-wise, we want to build an accurate timeline, and we want to be able to go through and recreate a situation. Then there's Uncle Sam says so. Yeah, so there is that compliance aspect of it all. Then also, a network administrator, you'll want to set baselines for your network, and in order to do that, you want to get an idea of how it ticks. So these are all good reasons to do log management. Much better. Okay. Anyway, back to the talk. And then security-wise, you want to also set up potentially security event and information management. So all of these things are good tasks that you can use log management to support. So just about, we have this Internet of Things. We have smart. We have Internet-enabled managed devices. Anything that you can hook on the network can potentially produce a log, a kind of a list of its day-to-day activities. And ultimately, you're going to be pointing all that Internet of Things to a log management system. It doesn't sound like much, does it? But it really is. There's two types of log management that you'll encounter. You'll have log management, which is just you send everything that's brother to it, it captures it, and stores it into a database. It doesn't really do anything with it. You can set it up later to go through and pull out the bits and pieces you want to look at. But for the most part, you're just taking a snapshot of the current situation. Log event management is where it goes through and it pulls all that information out and kind of creates a situational awareness, which is a nice thing to have, but it has some side effects. Can you handle the truth? Well, you're trying to create an accurate view of the past. With log event management, if you know exactly what you're feeding it, then it works really good. You can get really good compression, you get a lot of good reporting, all that kind of stuff. You can do a lot of ad hoc searches, so you can get an idea of what your Cisco switches are doing, or if somebody's hitting it with some type of denial of service or some crap like that. So LEM does really good at that kind of stuff. Log management is about taking an accurate picture of the situation. So it's more, not so much about situational awareness, but being able to create a picture of any given moment. So the 300-pound gorilla. Yeah, you can have a syslog server, but when you need to go through and dig through that data looking for what went wrong, how big was this disastrous breach, you're going to be dealing with a lot of data. So you can do regular expressions on your log files and that kind of stuff, grep through it, but doing a regular expression on 1,000 messages is not as doing it on 20 million. scale happens. It's big data, and that's something that we need to kind of wrap our heads around. Eat the mic, they say. Sorry. I suppose we could turn this into a drinking game. So, for you CISSPs out there, what does CIA stand for? Cats? Central Intelligence Agency. Come on. Come on. There you go. Good. So, confidentiality. Is the database secure? So you're throwing all these logs into this log server. Is it going to be secure? This is one of our needs, and is it only accessible to the people that you want to have access to it? The other part of a log management system is integrity, and man, there are terrible, terrible things you can do to an unprotected log management server. Yeah, you can sit there and just fill up the logs to no end, and then they can't see what you're doing. It's horrible. So, does a log management solution does it protect the integrity of your logs? And then accessibility. How many people on your team or in your company would you trust to go through a Linux prompt and do a regular expression against a text file? None. Would you trust them with root? Okay. So it's a very small handful of people that have access to this thing. So you have no helpers in case something bad happens. So accessibility is a big deal. And then also managing access to those multiple people that you do trust. So this is another thing you want to look at. Some of the open source solutions and the formatting screwed up here just because I converted from Google Docs. My bad. So Greylog 2 is one that I've been researching, and it's a brand new project. They just took the code and completely rewrote it. So it started about earlier this year, about February. They did one of their first releases, and it supports LDAP. It runs on Java, which, but yeah, sure. So then there's ELSA, which is something that's part of, I think, was it a Security Onion CD or something like that. But that one, and then there's Octopussy, wonderful, not safe for work name. Great. I don't know how I would sell that to senior management. Oh, I want to sell you Octopussy. It's great. I want you to buy Octopussy. So these are all-in-one solutions. They hook into LDAP. They work nice and all that kind of stuff. But we get into scaling problems. Octopussy uses flat files for its data storage. They're just XML, and it eats up CPU like crazy. ELSA uses MySQL in the background, which they say, oh yeah, you can cluster it. And then Greylog, they just rewrote it, and they're new code. But if all else fails, there's syslog. Syslog, has been with this since the beginning of time. It is simple and it's stupid. Fluent and Logstash. Fluent, I think, is in Ruby, and Logstash is Java. And essentially it behaves kind of like syslog, where you can just tell it to open up different ports and accept different formats, and then in the background it transfers it into whatever database you like. It's just kind of this man in the middle where it just passes your data wherever you want it to go. So, but it by itself doesn't have a user interface, so it's kind of hard to use. Same thing with Logstash, same thing. OSSEC is nice, but it's a security event manager, so it's going through things and looking at security events. So, and the web interface for it is kind of weak. So, but those options are if all else fails. And like I said, with Greylog 2, scalable, you can sit there and cluster the hell out of it. It is painfully easy to scale this out. Like I said, there's some growing pains, but I've been testing it at work. It does okay for small and medium-sized organizations. When you get beyond that, things get kind of shaky. And then, of course, syslog. Simple, ubiquitous, cheap, and stupid. It is stupid is a good quality. Storage. 711 floppies equals 1 gigabyte. Remember when it was that easy? So, log events are usually about between 1K and 100K. It'll vary a little bit, depends on what you're logging. And you don't necessarily, you won't know ahead of time what your events per second. So how many logs per second are you getting, and how big are those logs? So what you really have to do is you have to go through and test that and sample it from your actual live environment. I don't know of a way you can accurately do it. Peaks and surges. With peaks, like somebody turns on, say, auditing on Windows Server. That's going to drown you. If you don't have a good planned log management system, you're going to drown in logs. It will not be pretty. Fortunately, like let's see here, RabbitMQ, Kafka, and that kind of stuff. There's a input plugin for Graylog, which allows you to sit there and just pull from that. So it absorbs the initial brunt attack of the log surge, and then you're just sitting there drawing it down until everything evens out. So very, very useful thing to have. So a little bit of math. You can boo. Okay. So events per second, essentially, it's the number of events you get over a period of time in seconds. So when you're hunting for a log management system, this is going to be one of the questions they ask you. What is your events per second, or EPS? So that's how you calculate it. Also, you need to figure out over time how much traffic are you going to get. You think, oh, 1K, well, that's not a big deal. I got a 100 megabit network. I have plenty of bandwidth for this. Well, if you've got a big network, and I think I'm working with something like 65 different locations with each of them with a Windows NT or Windows Active Directory setup. Yeah, that's fine laugh. But that generates a lot of logs. So you take, an otherwise small amount, and then you sit there and multiply it by a lot. Anybody who works in a big company, you're dealing with a serious amount of logs. That's a non-trivial amount of bandwidth you got to allocate for this. Also storage. So you take the average size of your log, multiply it by your events per second, multiply your events per second, or that size, by the number of seconds in a day, and then that's how much storage you're going to use in a day. So if I have 15 million events in a day, 15 million divided by 24, divided by 60, divided by 60 is 173 events per second. And then roughly about 14.31 gigs per day. That isn't so small anymore, is it? So if you calculate over a year, it turns into 5 terabytes. That isn't bad, but it's still a lot of storage to throw just at logs. And then there's companies that I know that their events per second, it's like they're dealing with 400 gig a day and having to store it forever. That's a non-trivial exercise there. So also, when you're dealing with large amounts of data, it becomes important to know what the database backend is. MySQL, who here has dealt with a stock MySQL database? Okay, what happens to that database when it gets to be, let's say, 20 terabytes? Okay, like the new 5.1, we'll say 5.5. What happens to it? There's like even with Microsoft databases, what happens to the database over time? Just as it gets surges and peaks and that kind of stuff. It gets big. And MySQL doesn't have a way to get small again. So it gets ugly quick. So when I look at a solution that says, oh, we use MySQL, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. So short talk, but sure this is posted online. And this is just a list of how to get access to all the various open source log management projects. And does anybody have any questions?
I've got a question, actually. So, from what I know from forensics, one of the biggest challenges is the fact that so many different systems will deal with times and dates differently. Do any of those tools normalize on input, or do you have to deal with 5 terabytes of data that is in multiple time zones while you're going through stuff?
Let's see here. Graylog normalizes. I know that you can get syslog to normalize, but with syslogs, mostly you're collecting from a whole bunch of different servers, so that's where that kind of time shift happens. If you have a centralized log management server, then you can do some normalization there. I think all the all-in-one packages have normalization built in, so I think that's, yeah, Logstash does. And I think Fluent does as well.
Awesome. Anybody have any other questions? All right. Let's grab the grab bag here.
All right. One quick note.
Let's see what he's won. It is a t-shirt. Hey! Nice.